I was brought up in a sort of liberal-minded, middle-class Jewish family, not religious, in Hampstead, and my parents were not pushy about going into formal education. I mean, both my parents were political. They were both in the Labour Party. In fact, they were both Labour Party councillors, local councillors. So there was a lot of discussion in the home. So I kind of was engaged in those ideas. And when I was, a student, I was very interested in kind of left-wing politics and then feminism in particular. One way of getting our ideas across was to do street theatre. So on International Women's Day, we all dressed up and went out onto the streets and, kind of did sort of very basic kind of street theatre stuff about, kind of basic feminist ideas. And then after I left university, I lived in Liverpool for a few years and got involved in there was a women's film group, and it was at a time where there was sort of funding available for sort of independent film workshops. So I kind of got involved in filmmaking through that sort of very independent route. And I was involved in setting up an organisation called Justice for Women, which was around the issue of women, abused women who kill their partners. We were invited initially by a friend to organise a demonstration outside the Royal Courts of Justice at the time of Sarah Thornton's appeal to raise awareness around the issue of provocation and the fact that it was less easily available to women who killed suffering abuse than it was to men who killed when they claimed they were nagged, for example. Justice for Women was written to by Emma Humphreys, and she asked if we could help her appeal her conviction. It was a very compelling letter. So none of us were solicitors. So we went to Rohit Sanghvi, who's the solicitor who worked on Kiranjit Ahluwalia's case, which we campaigned around. And he said, well, I can take on this case, but I need somebody to do the work on it because I won't have time. And is there somebody who could work with me and work with Emma to get her story? So I spent, several months visiting Emma regularly in prison and putting together her account, which sort of formed the basis, eventually enabled the kind of appeal grounds to come out from there. Emma was a young woman who was abused in all sorts of different ways, from childhood, and ended up on the streets of Nottingham as a street prostitute, and she was then really badly violated by a man who she described as her boyfriend, but he was really a kind of pimp. And she ended up killing him, and she was only 17 at the time, and when she went to trial, she had an all-male legal team, and the solicitor who wasn't very appropriate, and she just couldn't speak. She didn't speak in court. So she was convicted of murder and detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. It's quite an important judgment in a number of judgments that really tried to push the law, the defence of provocation, and it established a precedent around the importance of the cumulative provocation. So it's not just your final moment, but it's like you have to look at all the different strands of provocative conduct that kind of come together that influence somebody. In fact, interestingly, the appeal happened like literally a week or two after I'd just qualified or finished my legal practice course. So my law teachers were very enthusiastic. And I thought, oh my God, I don't, you know, I've only done it really for about 6 to 8 months, and they want me to set up this whole department. And it was very collegiate, actually. People were very supportive because because it was a new area of law. So when I got this job, various people just said, just ring me up when you've got a problem, and so I did. And in a way, that initial work was, you know, because I was on my own, it kind of just forced me to have to take responsibility. I mean, there have been a number of cases that I've been involved in. One of the most significant cases that's had a real lasting impact, I think, for women is the War Boys case, the police action, which went to the Supreme Court. And so this is a black taxi driver who later went on to attack over 100 women. And two women who had reported him to the police and had been failed at that time. Police didn't follow through. We brought a case, and you can't sue the police in negligence, and that's been a long-established principle. But under the Human Rights Act, we were able to argue that under Article 3 of the European Convention on Human Rights, that there was a duty, an investigative duty that applied not just to the state, but to third parties. So it's now very, very clearly established in English law as you know, a duty, and I think it's a very important duty. So that's something I'm very proud to have been involved in. Back in about 2011, it began to emerge that there were undercover police officers who had been tasked with infiltrating political groups, mostly left-wing and environmental groups and animal rights groups, but also apparently far-right groups as well, who it was said posed a threat to public order. A number of these officers inappropriately formed long-term intimate sexual relationships, sometimes lasting 5 or 6 years, with women in their false identity, which when those men suddenly disappeared, you know, from that relationship because they were pulled out from their undercover deployment, it left those women in a terrible state because they had thought that they had met somebody who was potentially a life partner, somebody that they'd become very close to, and who turned out to be a complete lie. And eventually, it kind of we pushed it to a kind of mediation where we were able to agree a compromise. I mean, which was a settlement and a very public apology from the police. Its aims are to hold the state to account around violence against women and girls and challenge discrimination in the criminal justice system. And its main method for doing that is through strategic litigation. We're in the middle of 2 quite big strategic litigation cases arising from that. One is a challenge to the Crown Prosecution Service in relation to what we believe is a change in their approach to the prosecution of rape in the last couple of years, which has seen a massive reduction in the number of rape cases being charged and prosecuted. So that's one of the legal challenges. The other one is around the requirement to hand over your mobile phone data when you report a rape. And new guidance that was issued by the National Police Chiefs Council and the CPS around consent to download. And, you know, a lot of women will not continue with a rape investigation if they feel that their whole private life is going to be subjected to scrutiny by the police. I don't work solidly all the time. I have a home life, and you know, I try to relax and go on holiday and so on. I don't have children. I have animals. We have a friend. Me and my partner have a friend who has mental health issues. I've got a mum who's got Alzheimer's, so I've got some caring responsibilities. Fortunately, she's well looked after, and yeah. But I've been with my partner Julie for over 30 years. She is also very politically in tune with me, although she's got a very different approach to things that I do. We're quite different characters, but yeah, very, very, very much in tune and supportive of each other in that way. I've been able to do work that has been both you know, intellectually satisfying and politically satisfying and useful, and I feel very lucky to have been able to do so many of the cases that I've been able to do. Without question, you know, having established the Centre for Women's Justice, there's absolutely no question there's a massive need for it, and that's why we built up one of the things we've done is created a lawyers reference panel, and we're trying to train up lawyers to do more of this work, because there are very few that have had the expertise. So I guess there's a kind of legacy there as well, in terms of wanting to ensure that lawyers are more responsive and understanding to the issues around violence against women, so that they can take these cases forward, because there's no doubt there's a huge need for it.